You're hanging out with Shammah here on Life FM, and I'm super stoked to be joined by one of my favorite artists ever, Wande. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so stoked about this. I
Yeah.
have to say, of any artist ever, you definitely have my favorite merch. I was on your website the other day and I saw that you've got like lashes and lip gloss and
Oh,
just
yeah.
like, yeah, just a range of different things. Would you say that you had a lot of creative input in that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, like, my management team is super supportive. So I just always like to do different ventures. So they're always like, okay, let's do it. Let's rock. And so it's been a lot of fun. I'm actually about to launch a new collection. So I'm actually designing some more women clothing that we can use in our everyday life. So I've been studying myself to be
Yeah.
like, what do I like to wear? And that's been inspiring what I'm going to put out for my new collection as well.
Oh, that is so cool. Yeah, I love when merch is sort of reflective of the artists themselves, and I think you've nailed that. And you're definitely a fan favorite here on Life FM. I want to get into your music, definitely, but I thought it'd be cool to sort of start from the beginning of your life. You had a very fascinating upbringing. You were born into a Christian and Muslim household, which I'm sure was an
Mhm.
interesting dynamic, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I'm curious to know, like, how was it that you sort of came to have your own personal relationship with God?
Yeah, it actually, funny enough, relates back to music. So, growing up, there was about a point in time whenever I was a teenager where I started to gain some interest in God. I wasn't really saved yet, but I started to gain interest at least of like wanting to know more about who God is, who he says he is. And my church had always had a summer camp where they had went to, take the youth and they learned about God that week. And a lot of people would always get saved and say it's like an amazing camp, but I was never allowed to go to that camp because of like my split household. So my dad would let me go to church, but never like anything more than just a Sunday. And so with that camp, it relates back to music because whenever I was fascinated with God, I started looking up like, oh, like how can I change my music? So I started looking up Christian remix to
Yeah.
this or Christian whatever of this. And I ended up finding Lecrae actually. And so I found Lecrae and he had a song called Praying for You. And I was really fascinated by their whole group 116 clique that had like Lecrae, Tripoli, all of that.
Mm.
And so I looked it up and they actually had a concert coming up in my area that was at the summer camp that my church went to all the time.
Wow.
And so that actually spawned me to want to go to that camp because I was like, oh, I want to see this group. Meanwhile, I didn't know that me going to this camp, I'd actually get saved. So the fascination with the music led me to the camp, but then me going to the camp that whole week, like God definitely just changed my life drastically. I ended up getting saved, giving my life to Jesus and
Wow.
following Christ for real, for real. And that's how I ended up getting saved at that summer camp.
That is so awesome. I grew up in like a religious household that was just Christian, so it's always interesting to
Mhm.
hear of how people kind of came to their own decision, despite their background. So that is awesome. Now you
Yeah.
are a Nigerian American. I am a Zimbabwean New Zealander.
Mhm.
So I understand that growing up with African parents is interesting in itself. They have certain career aspirations for us and like expectations. I don't know if it's the same for you, but there was
Mhm.
always this
Yeah.
idea that I should be like a doctor or, like a nurse or, something medical or engineering, that kind of thing. So I'm interested to know about like how you came to that decision that you felt that God was calling you to be a rapper and that discussion that you had with not only yourself but with your parents as well.
Yeah, so definitely that still aligns with my life. Like my parents wanted me to be a doctor. I actually wanted to be a doctor too, so I
Oh,
was actually
wow.
fine with it at first. Since I was 5, I wanted to be a doctor, and so actually being on that path led me to rapping because in a biology class, that's when I ended up finding out I could rap. So one of my
Wow.
teachers had the assignment to, like, hey, let's mix it up. Instead of doing a PowerPoint presentation or writing an essay about cellular transport, she was like, you can make a rap if you want. And I chose rapping. And yeah, I ended up being really good at it. And my friends were like, wow, like you're actually really good at this. You could be a rapper for real, like in real life. And I noticed it was outside of my comfort zone and something I would never really normally do. I was just known as being like the smart kid. And then yeah, it just changed my life drastically. I noticed how powerful it was, and I had just gotten saved about a year before that. And so I was like, oh, if I have your attention with the rapping, I'm going to tell you about Jesus through rapping. And so that just kind of started that journey. And I felt like God really told me that he wanted me to do this about like a year later. And so ever since then, I was like, okay, I'm going to be obedient to the plan.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm like I said before, I'm a fan of your music, and my sister is actually like the biggest fan ever. And she firstly told me to tell you that she says hi, so hi. And she also mentioned that you were the first female Christian rapper to sign to a hip hop label, which in itself is super cool. So congrats on that. How did that all kind of come to be? Because I think I read somewhere that you started as an intern at Reach Records.
Yeah, so my life is definitely like a story of defeating the odds and overcoming. So yeah, I was started off as an intern. So I have like really strong faith. So I thought whenever I was an intern, I would end up getting signed. That didn't happen. So I ended up being an intern. I did a good job. I still had one more year of college left, university. So I went back to college, finished my senior year. They hired me back on as a staff member, and so ironically, in the staff, I was working in the A&R department, and part of my responsibilities was handling contracts. Another part was looking for artists to sign, which is so funny that God placed me in that position. But along the way, it was about 6 months. They were like studying me as I was working. And as I was working, I found out the executive team was having like weekly debates about me. And so we actually had a marketing director named Marcus who weekly would be like, "We have to sign Wande. Have y'all not heard her music? What's going on?" And then everybody would each give their opinion of like, "Oh, well, maybe, but what if she wants to just work her job? But we don't want to stress her out." And other people would be like, "Who cares about stressing her out? She needs to be an artist." And so eventually, after a 6 month debate amongst the whole executive team, I got offered a contract in December of 2018, and so I ended up getting signed around the January through April period of 2019.
Wow, that's awesome. And as we know, it is a very male-dominated industry. So has there been any struggles being a woman in that industry?
Yeah, I think definitely one, especially in the Christian industry, for me, like as we said, like I'm the first to be signed to like Reach Records and stuff like that. So there's like a lot of firsts. I would say that's the struggle.
Mm,
So whenever you're the first person to do something, you don't have an example, a prototype. So like as Christians, we have the Bible. So we don't have to start from scratch. We see examples, plenty of examples of other people who have done things that God is like, here you go. Here's examples of what to do and what not to do. But for me, like being the first woman to be signed to this like hip hop label, especially doing it the Christian way, there's definitely just like a lot of firsts of like, oh, what does she need whenever we're on tour? Like, what does she need for her music videos? Because men, like for music videos, they just cut their hair and put on a nice outfit and that's it. For me, it's like, oh, I would like to have my makeup done. Like, so I recently learned how to do my makeup, but I didn't know how to do my makeup and stuff when I first got signed. So it's like, I need a makeup artist. I need a hairstylist to do my hair so I don't look crazy in music videos. So even stuff like that was like different because before that was never like a budget item for the artist because it was all
mm.
men and that was just not something that they had to do. Um, and just different things that like accommodating of like just how I like to operate in my sessions. Like a man might like someone talking to them like this, but it's like I don't like you talking to me like that, so talk to me gently. So different things like that as well, just like operating of just like having a woman environment, woman teams, just being cognizant. So I would say it's just like a lot of firsts, but once people get used to it, it's great. But it's just like a lot of firsts. So it's like I have to be bold a lot
Yeah.
and speak up for myself a lot. Luckily, I have an amazing management team, so they speak up for me as well. But it's like a lot of firsts. And sometimes whenever things are first, it's not always like perfect the first time.
Yeah, wow, that is so awesome. And so, just pivoting a bit more to your music, I want to talk about your newer song, which we are loving here on Life FM. It's called Winning. And my question, I suppose, is just what that writing process was like for that song and what you're hoping that listeners get out of it.
Yeah, that one was really fun. That one was just inspired behind me just being like, I want to get back in the studio. I want to make songs. So I just had a lot of fun just like actually having fun. That one came out of me just having a regular rhythm of coming to the studio and just creating. And so I think for that song, I really just wanted to encourage people of like, hey, like you can live a holy lifestyle and be fun and have fun with it. And I think I also want to encourage people, which is also what I want to encourage people with my career. You can win doing things God's way. So I
Yeah.
wanted to encourage people, like, that's why I say cut the sinning. So like I don't have to live a sinful lifestyle to win. I can win following the Lord's way.
It's so cool. And the music video is fun, like you said. It features the real women of the Old Testament. Every outfit is
Yes.
on point. Your stylist absolutely killed it. And the real
Thanks.
women are a part of a TikTok series that you do called the Hallelujah Roll Call.
Yes.
I have to say, that has been sent to me so many times from so many different people, like in group chats, just direct messages. Even people that aren't Christians in my life have been sending me that video. So that is so cool. How did you come up with that idea?
Yeah, so actually it spawned from, I have a friend named Chris, and so it's cool because I love the TikTok community because we all get to interact with each other. So Chris actually likes to do Christian remixes. And so he started off by doing a Christian remix and he did the men. And then I was like, wow, I want to do the women. And so it led me to then go study the women of the Bible and do my own version. And it definitely went way beyond what I thought it was going to be. Like,
Mm,
I thought it was just for fun. Like, I literally just did it out of pure joy of like loving Jesus, music, and comedy. And so I literally just made it for fun. Like, my husband saw me making it. I was like, oh, yeah. And it's really funny just seeing how massively it blew up to like millions of views like overnight. And so that was insane, but it was really beautiful because it literally was just the Bible. So I think it
yeah.
was great seeing people being able to learn Bible stories, but also be able to have a laugh in it and stuff like that, and just be introduced into the world of like women in the Bible.
It's it's a great series, and I think you are really good at doing that where you make the Bible cool for people who may not necessarily know much about the Bible. And I just talking about TikTok especially, I want to know, like, as an artist, when TikTok started becoming a thing, could you have imagined that it would have this much of an impact on the music industry and music marketing in general?
I think no. I think nobody anticipated that. I remember it used to be called Musically before it got bought out, and I remember I have like one random video where I'm just like playing around, but I think nobody had any idea that it was gonna do what it's doing now. I'm glad that I was an early adopter to an extent, so I was able to like learn a little bit and like kind of know what I'm doing. But yeah, I think nobody knew that it was going to change this many lives. There's literally a lot of my friends. I have friends who have careers because of TikTok. And
Mm.
normally they wouldn't have had a chance to even blow up, or I wouldn't have even known who they were. But just because of the algorithm, it fed me their video. And I'm like, oh, I love what you're doing. And then we support each other. So I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, awesome. And have you found that it's a good way to connect with your fans or like get new fans?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's the best in terms of finding new fans. I found so many, especially Christian women. I feel like I'm in Christian women TikTok, so I like see new women every day who love God, who love fashion, makeup, and so it's beautiful. I comment on their videos. Sometimes people get surprised that I actually comment on videos, but I legitimately love Jesus and being a woman. So it actually excites me to find other women who like are excited about that. So I actually interact on Christian TikTok a lot, and so you'll often find me commenting on other people's videos or commenting on other Christian comedian videos and stuff. So I really enjoy it.
Wow. And yeah, I feel like you have a very unique ability of being able to sort of share the gospel, and you seem to have a lot of rich Bible knowledge, which is amazing. That shows not only in your music but also in your social media. Yeah, you just have this ability to make the Bible really cool. So I want to know if you had like always intended on using social media as a way to sort of minister to people.
Maybe yes, maybe no. So I would say I think I was born in a great time to where social media came whenever I was like a older teenager. And so because of that, I was already saved and passionate about God. So since I was already saved and passionate about God, I naturally would talk about that on my social media. So I guess for me, it was just like another tool that just naturally came. And then by me just being myself and talking about what I'm passionate about, I happen to be able to spread it. And I think sometimes I reflect on that because I'm like, wow, like a million people saw this video and it's explicitly about the Bible.
Mm.
So sometimes I sit down and I'm like, wow, like that's amazing that God is able to use these channels to touch lives because yeah, that's a whole sermon. Like growing up, my church was maybe 200 people. So like it's amazing seeing like how God is using these new channels of technology to spread the gospel.
Yeah. And over Easter, you did a Win Bible series, which I think is super cool. It's so casual, like a way of sharing the word. For listeners who
Mhm.
aren't necessarily familiar with it, how would you describe the series and I suppose the heart behind it?
Yeah, so the heart behind it was honestly just being aware, like how I just said, like, oh wow, like my platform reaches so many people. So for me, it'd be like, how can I not minister on one of the greatest days as for Christians, like the day that our Lord and Savior, was able to die on the cross and resurrect. So for me, just kind of like out of the outpouring of the awareness of my platform, I was like, I definitely want to share the gospel. So it was a casual way of me breaking down the Bible to people who may not, you know, necessarily read the Bible or be comfortable with it. And so I broke it down in Gen Z terms to where somebody who was following along could be able to know, almost like a story time. So people would love story times on TikTok. So it's like, here's a story time, but it's biblically accurate and I'm going to take you through the chapters. So that's
Yeah.
what it was.
Wow. I've got a couple more questions for you. Um, just getting back to the music, when can we expect more music from you?
Oh, it's gonna be an amazing year. We're gonna be rolling out a lot of music. So next month I'll have another song coming out. So stay tuned for that. I'm super excited. I have a collab on the way with a famous
Mm,
artist. So that's gonna be a
okay.
lot of fun. But yeah, definitely be expecting music all year. We're gonna be rolling it out. We're gonna be rolling it out. So I'm so excited.
Amazing. And final question. If you had a word of advice or like wisdom for people who are feeling called to pursue a more creative endeavor, what would that word of wisdom be?
I think the word of wisdom would be follow the pace God has called you and be consistent. So I think I would say that because, if God has called you to rap, that doesn't necessarily mean a million people. Or, that might mean rap for your church. That might mean rap for this talent show. So I would say don't compare yourself to other people. Just really listen to the voice of like, what is God telling me to do and find contentment in that and joy and faithfulness in that, whether how small it might be. Because even God says, if you're faithful in little, I'll trust you with more. And then I would just say be consistent. Because if you're consistent, you're gonna grow over time. So like the more you just keep doing something each day, you grow. Just like working out. If you try to work out one day, then you stop for 2 months. When you come back the next time, you have to start over. Versus if you consistently work out a little bit over time, you'll get stronger and stronger and you'll have more endurance. So be consistent and be faithful with what God has given you, and you'll see what the future holds.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking time out to have a chat with me. I am so looking forward to your new music and I can't wait to see that collab, especially. I love your collaborations. So, yeah, thank you so much. And I hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I hope that y'all have an amazing day as well.
Thank you.